stream. Okay. Yay, I'm here. Okay. I think that worked. I just want to make sure that. Okay, good. I can see. All right. Yay, this worked. Okay, so I am streaming on a different platform, and where I can stream on 3 different sites at the same time. Actually, let me just go on Instagram because I can't stream on Instagram on here. So I need to add Instagram, and then we can keep it moving. Add Instagram. Live. Okay, cool. I'll put it right here. So, hey Maurice, I haven't seen you in a while. I have this new thing that actually Mr. Card Logic told me about, and I never used it. And I was on it today. I said, let me try it out. And I can stream on 3 different sites at one time. So this is really exciting for me. Only site I can't stream on. Hey Perry, only site I can't stream on is Instagram. I have to do Instagram separately. Yay! Yo, I'm so geeked right now. I'm so excited that I can do it everywhere. That makes me so happy. And so I'm on Instagram too. It's been a long minute. Yes, it has been. Okay, so that's good. I'm on Celeste Therapist. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to come on, check in. So if you don't know, I've been coming on 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to kind of talk about mental health. Hey, Maurice, to talk about mental health, to kind of talk about strategies to deal with what you're dealing with. Anybody who is already familiar with me knows that this is something that I have been doing for a while now. And the goal behind this is to just kind of give you a new perspective and kind of shift the way you're thinking about things, because a lot of times when things happen, I think we tend to struggle with what's the next step, or how can I deal with what I'm going through. And my goal is to just kind of give people like some coping strategies. Hey Wes, how are you? So I'm streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope. Yeah, I'm streaming on all those different sites. So one thing I want to kind of like just touch on today is being patient and kind with yourself. That's something that we don't do well enough. And everything today, or everything over the last week, has happened so fast. Hey, what's up, Jay? Everything has happened so quickly in our lives. Our lives went from one end of the spectrum to another end of the spectrum. And so we are really trying to navigate what that looks like. And instead of getting stuck on what's not happening, because I think that a lot of us are only looking at what's not happening. I want us to look at like what we can do and kind of what are the things that we have control over. Life is totally changing. And if we've been really conditioned and stuck in a way of being, sometimes it's hard to really like move along with that change. And so one thing about facing reality and working on moving forward is that you have to work on facing the reality. So if I'm still here and just saying like, this isn't fair, or why is this happening? Then I'm not going to be able to move forward. It's so much easier said than done. It's nice to say, hey Jude, it's nice to see you as well. It's so much easier said than done, right? And so one thing I tell people is to mourn the loss of the life that you wanted to have, or that you couldn't have, right? That's important. To mourn the loss of what you felt like it was supposed to be like. Because if we can, Melanie, are you trying to come in, or did you click it by accident? If we can think about it that way. Hey, Sally, if we can think about it that way, think of it as a loss, and then we can work on moving forward to like, well, what is happening and what can I do? It's okay. what is happening and what can I do. Everyone, oh dang, I didn't assign no moderators, and I don't think I can take people out when I'm live streaming on this platform. Dang, I'm trying to figure it out. Shoot. There's no way for me to like take people out of Periscope, I don't think, on this thing. So maybe, let me see something. I can do it on here. Oh, thank you. You will block yourself? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for doing that. Yeah, so one thing I want to say is it's important to like give yourself some grace during this time. It's important to give yourself some grace during this time because it's a new system for you. It's a new life, and some people have like created this system. Maybe January they started to say like, I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of my. Thank you for that. I'm going to take care of my mental health. And then this happens, and then you feel like, wait. Can a girl mix this? Get yours. Sorry, 1 second. This person's throwing me off. I gotta take them out because it's throwing me off. Hold on 1 second. Let me go into here. Next time I have to assign a moderator. I didn't think about that. Well, I haven't had any trolls in a long time on Periscope. It's been a long time since I had any trolls. Okay, here it is. All right. Block. Okay, cool. All right, so we got that person out of here. That was good. Okay, back to Instagram. Sorry, Instagram. It's cool. Yeah, I know, but it was just throwing me off. It was throwing me off, and because I'm live streaming on this one platform, I didn't figure out. I don't know how I can take somebody out that's doing that. Thank you. Thank you. You see how that just happened? This is a prime example. So other platforms can't see this, but on Periscope, there was a troll in here, and so like I didn't allow the troll to affect me and what I was doing. It did throw my mindset off track, but my energy, I wasn't going to allow anybody else to kind of throw me off track. Because it's not that serious. Hey, Genuine. So yeah, so give yourself some grace. If you're a parent and you have children at home, I have 4 at home, all different ages. Definitely like be okay if you can't stick to a schedule. That's okay, right? You may have had this plan, like I'm going to have this schedule. We're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it may not go according to plan, and that's okay. And a lot of times, sometimes, if there's bickering and there's a lot of things happening with them, it can throw you off track. And then you'll find yourself struggling in that moment. And so one thing I like to tell people to do is to make sure that they're working on resetting. Okay, this moment is hard, but let me work on like resetting and like letting that go so I can move forward with my day. The whole day doesn't have to be a wash because something happened. 10 and 12-year-old and hubby home and 2 new puppies. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And so relax. There are good and bad days. Yes, this is time of family. Yes, thank you, Perry. So when people when you do start getting irritable and people start getting on your last nerves, remind yourself that that you love them, and that this is a moment and you're human and you're going to feel irritable and you're going to feel overwhelmed, and it's really okay. That's something that I really want to stress. And for people that may have, this is going to take some divine intervention. It's going to be okay. And making sure that when things happen, you're mindful of your mindset or your thoughts around it, because our thoughts kind of dictate our behaviors, right? We have this thought, and then we feel a certain way, and then we're manifesting it a certain way. So be mindful of that. Another thing too that I actually talked about earlier is paying attention to your mental status by like what you're eating, how much you're sleeping, and how much you're moving your body. I think when you don't have to get up at a certain time anymore to catch the bus to go to work or drive to work or to do the things that you used to do, it's kind of easy to kind of stay up all night. It's kind of easy to just like get up at random times. And I think it's important to try to create some type of routine where you are allowing your body to get good sleep, where you are able to move your body, where you are trying to eat as healthy as possible. It's not about sticking to any kind of meal plan, but probably paying attention to how much you're going to the refrigerator or how much the kids are going to the refrigerator. Somebody had put on Instagram that the kids are going back and forth to the refrigerator, and do you do this at school? Do you go back and forth to the refrigerator at school? Well, have your school stomach here. These are school hours still. But one thing that we know about addiction is that anything can become an addiction, right? And so I think food is an easy way for us to cope and smother our feelings and smother our emotions or our boredom, because we're not able to do the things that we used to do. So really being mindful of like what kind of food you're intaking and how often you're intaking them, how much water you're drinking, how much are you getting up to go for a walk outside. And thank you, Jude. How much you're getting up to go for a walk outside, and how much are you sleeping. One thing I want people to pay attention to while we're on top of each other in our homes is our irritability and any behavioral changes that may be happening during this time. Because a lot of times we can end up developing like bad habits, new bad habits. One could be drinking, right? I'm sure the liquor stores are making some good money. They're making some good money. And it's easy to just like crack open a bottle of wine every night. No, it's not leather. It's easy to crack open a bottle of wine every night. And the wine will, no, they're closed. Where are you? They're not closed here yet. Oh, they're really closed. Some places they're still open. And I think it's easy to crack open something to drink every night. Start monitoring if you're a drinker. I'm a drinker, I like wine. And so just monitor how often you're drinking, because before you know it, you'll find yourself probably drinking every night. And in the moment, it feels good, right? But I think that down the road, it could become part of an addiction, right? It could be something that you're not realizing that you've been utilizing to cope, whether it's drinking, whether it's food. There's so many different things that can happen. Yes, because of the pandemic. Oh, okay. Are you in America? Where are you? In Boston, it's still open. Is this? Oh, I thought this was Jude. I thought this was the Jude I know. This is not the Jude that I know. There's another Jude on here, and this is not the Jude. Does anybody have any questions or any? Oh, you're in Minnesota. Okay. Yeah, here in Boston it is. Are you like in a small town in Minnesota? Are you in a small town? I'm in Boston, Mass. One thing I want to say is I have a podcast. So nice. Hey, are you was talking? Hey, how are you? Just was talking about you the other day. I'm good. Drinking a little. Just kidding. Twin Cities. Oh, okay. Okay. One thing I wanted to say too is that I have a podcast called Celeste Therapist Podcast. I talk to people that are empowering other people. Podcasts, YouTube, music, trying to be creative with your time and how you're utilizing it is going to be crucial right now. Some people may not have had any kind of anxiety conditions or anything like that. But I think if we're not caring for our mental health during this time, it can create conditions that may not have been there in the past. And so because we cannot see it, right? I was on a live stream with a local city councilor today, and one of the things she had me on, but one of the things she says, like, we're talking about washing our hands, we're talking about physically protecting ourselves, staying in the home. Like, these are the conversations that we're continuously having over and over again, but we're not talking about our mental health, right? And I think because we can't see what's happening in our mind in real time, it's easy for us to dismiss it and not really deal with what's happening or how it's happening or how we're being affected because we cannot see it. If we're intentional and if we're in tune with our body and our mind, we can start to see the signs, we can feel the signs, right? We can feel everything that's taking place if we start to be intentional about being still and being in the moment. That's huge. Can we still see the live Facebook? Yes, you can see it. If you go to, you're on Instagram, Crystal. If you go to the link in my bio, I have a link in my bio, or if we're friends on Facebook, you can see it there. She asked some really, really great questions that a lot of people don't really think about. I was so grateful that she created that space for people because it's not, I've always been about mental health, but it's not always you see people especially like politicians, looking to create space to have conversations about mental health because education is where it starts. The lack of education around mental health, I believe, causes us not to really deal with this stuff. Isn't mental health about confidence, self-esteem, self-worth? Claude, yeah, it is. All of that is part of it, right? So your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth is part of it, but also there are other things that could be happening. Everything starts up here in our mind. So some of our behaviors that we manifest, some of the things that we do happen because of what we're thinking. And I think a lot of times our mental health is not something that is broadcasted to take care of, right? They'll talk about getting your yearly exam every year. We talk about going to the dentist and things like that, but nobody really talks about how are you feeling and not just saying fine, right? We always say fine if somebody asks us, and it's not about saying it's not about telling the world that you're feeling hot, that you're feeling sad or you're struggling. I think it's really about being vulnerable with yourself, like really talking to yourself about how you're feeling. Because if you cannot be real with yourself, it's going to be hard for you to get through things. Great, thank you. What I'm struggling with is being in the moment. I'm worried about what if I run out of toilet paper? What if I run out of food, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, like how long until I can see someone else? Yeah. Crystal, and so part of when you like the specific toilet paper piece, right? When you think about the media and things, the toilet paper thing has been this like phenomenon that's been like kind of broadcasted everywhere, and the things that we're watching on the news or what people are sharing is really affecting us. And we don't realize how much it's affecting us in the moment. I can be resourceful, yes. And so I think it's important for us to really pay attention to how much we are entertaining the stuff outside, right? Because everybody can have a platform. I have a platform, right? And we can use it whichever way we want. And so, fortunately, this is an easy way for people to get people to click on things because there's something about the scary tactics or the scary things that has us glued to the TV. We're just kind of glued to it and watching and waiting for the next ball to drop. And that's like a breeding ground for anxiety if we're just sitting there and waiting and stuck on the what ifs. Because even though the what ifs are true, right? I'm not trying to deny that those things could possibly happen, but they're not happening right now. And so it's important for us to be mindful of what's happening right now. That's the part we have control over. And if I'm finding myself overwhelmed by so many what ifs, I'm going to pay attention to how much I'm depositing into my spiritual bank, right? Because there is like, you can live by like fear or faith, right? And so fear is going to come up, and it's a normal emotion to have. But I think if we continue to operate without feeding our faith and without feeding our mindset, right? It's easy for us to stay in a fearful state, and that is not healthy for you at all. I have a question, Rise News. I have a question. Can you fix my mental health after the virus news? My heart does trampling. Oh no. Does that make sense, Crystal? Watching up. So I have a question. Hey, Legally Brunette, can you so someone says, can you fix my mental health after this virus news? My heart does trampolining. So it sounds like your heart is just like always pacing. Hey Terry. So one of the things I have to say, so it's not about fixing your mental health. Think about it as managing. How about that? Can we say managing? Because the trampolining effect that's happening can happen whether we are mentally I consider myself being really like grounded and intentional, and really I take care of my mental health, but my heart can feel the same way at times thinking about things, right? And so what you can work on doing is noticing when it's happening. Like, what am I doing prior to it happening? Like, am I on social media and I'm seeing all of these things happening and finding myself overwhelmed? How much am I doing to feed my faith? How much am I doing to take care of myself, right? Am I going out to get fresh air? Am I taking a break from the screen? Am I listening to like something positive to help feed my mind? That's, I think, how we can work on balancing it out, because we cannot escape the negative things that are happening, right? And some people may say like, well, I want to be able to know like what's taking place and what's going on. And I completely understand. I think that's important. But where are you getting the information from is important. Sometimes I'm doing nothing and almost gasping because my heart goes so fast. And so those times it's important to ground yourself, right? Because even if let's say you're not even on social media, you're not watching the news and you're not doing anything, sometimes it just kind of reminds you, look, there's this crisis happening. And so you start to get into this panic state. So work on like grounding yourself and start doing like some deep breathing. Deep breathing could be really intentional breathing could be really helpful. So like right now, if we take a moment and take a deep breath in and then take a breath out. And so when you find yourself getting to that place of feeling like I'm so overwhelmed and my heart's pacing really, really bad, really like just sit down, put your feet on the ground, take your shoes off, like wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and just like take a deep breath. And one thing that can be helpful, so not just doing that when you're in the crisis state or when you're in a feeling like you're in a panic state, but trying to be intentional about making space to do things like that on a regular basis. That's important. That deep breathing is also great to boost your immune system. So the deep breathing is great to boost your immune system. That's a good point. I tried to work on my breathing, yes. But Legally Brunette, don't just do it when you're finding yourself stressed. Try to create like an intentional schedule so that maybe breathing is something I'm going to do first thing in the morning, and I'm going to take like a lunchtime. I'm going to take some time to take some deep breaths and breathe. Another thing too is like really paying attention to your that's weird. Instagram just like shut off. Really taking time to pay attention to how your body is responding, right? So even if you are you're saying like, well, I'm fine, everything's cool. Sometimes it's possible that your body is not fine. Like sometimes you can feel it in your body before you start to notice it anywhere else. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. I run every day and always feel great. Yes, Claude. And so the part of that is moving your body. And I was never a runner, but when I start in yoga too, yes. So yoga, Legally Brunette, is something that I started to try like a couple of like 4 or 5 years ago. And that allowed me to get really in touch with my body. And I started to realize like how much I was always tensed, whether it was my fingers when I was driving. Yes, YouTube is good. Can I find it on YouTube? Yes, you could find yoga on YouTube. You could find a beginner's meditation on YouTube. You could find really cool things on YouTube that are free. I always talk to people about like trying to every solution that I try to give people a chance to work on being intentional. They're all free suggestions that you can do regardless of your socioeconomic status. Hey, Lopez. So definitely try those things. Work on creating a plan to do it, right? So don't just say you're going to do it, like really write it down and make it part of your plan and say like, make it like you're scheduling a meeting or a doctor's appointment. Really like look at making that part of your routine. Whether we're talking about what we're dealing with now or in general, even after this pass, it's important to do things like that. So then when we're struggling, it's really easier for us to pick into our coping mechanism box and utilize those skills that we were already utilizing. My mind has been so occupied with the virus. Yeah, and that was like my whole reason for like really wanting to come on and talk about this stuff. Anybody who's ever been into any of my, whether you're my podcast or my social media or these periscopes I used to do all the time, know how passionate I am about mental health. And without this pandemic, we were already struggling with our mental health, right? Whether we knew it or not, because we were so distracted with life or work or surviving. And now that like that's not happening, we're forced to kind of look at our mental health. And that can be really hard. You're welcome, Melanie. We're forced to look at our mental health, and that's hard because now it's like we have no other choice but to look at what's going on, right? And so I want to look at what I have control over, and the things I have control over is agency over my body, and that's important. I think when we start to look at like, well, I do have control over my body. I do have control over making a schedule. I can work on limiting the time that I'm watching the news or that I'm on social media. When we start to look at that stuff, I feel like things start to feel less hard. It doesn't feel less hard. We don't feel like we're in an anxious state all the time, or our mind is continuously going and thinking about all the what ifs. When your brain is only thinking about the what ifs, all that is just so much anxiety just taking over your mindset, and that's not healthy at all. I also remember and mind, body, art. I love that on Instagram. I enjoy your podcast. Thank you, Lopez. I appreciate you for listening to my podcast. Also remembering we are not alone. Yes, and so like one thing about me is I think community is huge. And now we're kind of forced to create virtual communities. And so like, remember, you are not alone. No matter what your mind or your body tells you, you're not alone. I'm always in a panic state. Even before this, Legally Brunette, were you always in a panic state even before this? That's huge. To know you're not alone. And it's okay to say I'm not okay. I think some of us have been used to like being strong or saying I'm fine all the time. And right now you feel like you're really not fine. That's okay to say. Not so much. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. So even if like for people that may have already been experiencing panic attacks or anxiety, and it's something that you already had been dealing with, now it can cause like even more disruption in your thought process. So really working on like trying to be intentional about it and working on just putting one foot in front of the other. I say day to day, but sometimes it's like you got to think hour to hour and really like being mindful of that, right? You only could do what you can do. So it's like, what part of this do I have control over, right? That's something that's important to ask yourself when you find yourself struggling. Like, what do I have control over? Because some of the times the things that we're thinking about or the things that we're struggling with are things that are beyond our control, and that's kind of hard. I think it set my asthma off, but I can't be sure. My volume is low. Sorry, I think because I'm covering it. Thank you, Crystal. Um, yeah, so definitely like, and so even though you mentioned asthma, one thing about not caring for our mental health is that it can have physical manifestations, right? High blood pressure. Okay, good. High blood pressure. It can cause headaches. Some people get migraines when they're stressed out. Some people get like a lot of back tension in their back. Um, so, if you don't do it for anything, like make sure you don't want to create more issues for yourself by not caring for your mental health. Um, so I hope that makes sense. Does anybody else have any questions? So I'm coming on 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And answering questions about mental health. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Answering questions about mental health, talking about some like coping strategies, just kind of like the things that have come up. Sorry, Instagram. My laughter. Hey, Sean, laughter boosts your immune system for up to 24 hours. That's good. We need that, and so it's okay. Like if you see people like making jokes on social media, or like it's okay to smile. We don't have to. Everybody deals with trauma differently. Everybody deals with crisis differently. So it's something to really think about. I'm still trying to overcome my depression from December 24th. It changed my life. When you were struggling with depression, it changed your life. And so like when you think about like overcoming your depression, just I want you to think about how can I work on dealing with it? Because depression is I'd look at depression or anxiety on the spectrum. Like some of us experience it at a higher rate than others. And so it sounds like in December you were dealing with it at a higher rate, and now it's not as high. So working on managing it and making sure that yes, okay, good. So yeah, working on managing it and making sure that you're doing everything in your power to be intentional about how you're living your life day to day, right? Because if we only do the things that's going to help us when we're struggling, it won't work as much as if we were doing it on a daily basis, right? A diabetic doesn't take their insulin every day. When their sugar gets high, it's going to be harder to kind of bring their levels down because they haven't been utilizing the maintenance that they need for it on a regular basis. So sometimes, whether we're dealing with anxiety or depression, we may have like started this routine to help us get on track. And then now we're on track, we find ourselves just slipping back into old habits because we feel okay. And the reason why you feel okay is because you're doing the things you need to do to take care of yourself. So not taking care of yourself, you're going to find yourself slipping back into old habits. Hi, I meditate. Right. Okay. Thanks. Okay, good. That makes sense. Does anybody else have any questions? Hey, Doc Brown, how are you? Everybody's coming in late. I told y'all 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 8 a.m., 8 p.m. All right, good. That makes me happy. Sorry, just got off work. I'm joking. I'm messing with y'all. Does anybody else have any questions? So don't forget the podcast. You can check it out. Don't forget to be intentional about your day. Do you know how bad mental health issues can be going through this time? It's different with everyone. It's when it comes to the issues, everybody's going to respond differently to what's happening. Everybody's going to respond differently to what's happening, right? So the way that people's mental health manifest is going to look different on everybody, right? And a lot of people who may have gone through many crises in their lifetime may not manifest the effects as much as somebody who may have never really had much crisis happen in their lifetime, right? And so it's an individual thing. Mental health is an individual thing. And so the way that it affects people is just going to look differently. Hello, I have a bit of a laundry list of some issues. For me, too much sad news puts me in bed for a day or two. I completely shut off until I re-energize. So, like I said earlier, too much sad news. The sad news is always going to be there. The news, the negative things that are happening, they're there, right? And so it's important for us to not get so fixated on paying attention to it, right? Don't get so fixated on paying attention to it, especially because you're able to identify when I watch sad news, it puts me in a bad place and I find myself in bed for a day or two. So you understand your trigger. And so now I have to have some self control. And even though, like, I want to see what's going on, I feel like I need to look at it. I can't look at it because it's not good for my mental health. I used to 6 o'clock in the morning, but when I got up, had like coffee, watched the news. That was my thing. I don't watch the news anymore. I've been stopped watching the news even before this because it put me in a negative place. Waking up first thing in the morning, looking at all the negative things that's happening around the world, that's depressing. Some people are able to kind of shake it off more than others, but I know I can't. And so because I know I can't, I choose not to look at it, right? When you have an apple, you may enjoy the apple. I can't eat an apple because the apple, my gums start itching like crazy. So I've been able to identify that, and so I don't do it. And the thing about our mental health is that when we identify what causes us to struggle, sometimes we just keep doing it, not realizing, like, you know what, let me just not do that. Let me like take care of myself. Whether we're talking about the TV or a person in our life or somebody that we're dealing with, we kind of keep dealing with them because we're so used to feeling that way. So we can't really see it any other way. Um, I have paranoid schizophrenia and I'm an addict. Why does it seem like those two always go hand in hand? I'll answer that. I've never thought about seeing depression on the spectrum. This makes sense. Got to build up a toolbox. Yes, got to build up a toolbox is important. It's definitely like a spectrum thing because I feel like we've all experienced depression in some shape or form. So paranoid schizophrenia and addiction, why does it go hand in hand? So I happen to have experience working with people with schizophrenia. And I think the one thing about schizophrenia is that as it starts to form, unfortunately, like providers or people in the person's life don't really see it until it kind of blossoms because there are these things that are taking place in the person that's dealing with the schizophrenia that they may not even be able to explain or understand how to share, and so like it's never really dealt with. And so sometimes to quiet the noise, whether the person is having like auditory hallucinations or visual or just paranoid about things, whether you don't know how to express that because people don't talk about mental health enough. And so sometimes instead of expressing how you're feeling, it feels easier to just utilize a drug or alcohol. And so utilizing the drug or alcohol allows the person to not have to deal with the symptoms that comes up from schizophrenia. And so that I think that's why a lot of times people see schizophrenia and substance use together, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's bipolar, like the major mental health issues. I think whether we're talking about schizophrenia or anything else, seeing like the dual diagnoses of the substance use has to do with because unfortunately smoking weed is more acceptable than saying like I'm struggling, I'm feeling paranoid, I need support. Going to the liquor store, going to the bar is more acceptable in society, especially if you're a male. It's more acceptable than saying like, I think I need to talk to a therapist. I think I need to talk to my doctor. And so that's why I think people see that so often. Thank you guys for the questions. They were super awesome. You guys are awesome. And I think that one thing about, when you guys come and answer questions and communicate with each other, I think it's like something powerful. It's a community being built. It lets people know like they're not alone, which Mind Body Art said on Instagram. You start to realize like I'm not alone in the struggle. There's other people going through this, and that's the reason why I started the podcast, is because I want people to know, like, you're not alone, and that somebody else may have your story. Alcoholic Anonymous, AA, has been around for so many years because the model just works so well. Because if I go into a meeting on day one and I'm not thinking I'm going to be able to get my life together, but I listen to somebody's story who has been using substances for 20 years, for over the years, but have been sober for 20 years, I start to have hope. I start to realize, like, maybe I can get my life together. And that's why, like, building community and creating community is important. And so, like, I really want you, despite what's happening, to try to create that as best you can. Like, whatever that looks like, it's going to look different for everyone, but try to, like, create that. So I'll be back 8 a.m. To see y'all. Thank you, Megan. I'm glad you enjoyed it. 8 a.m. to see y'all. The podcast is called Celeste Therapist. You've been sober for the 29 years. That's so awesome. That's so freaking amazing. That's so amazing. I'm getting OCD about Corona, and I'm going mental. Are you asking me a question, or are you making a statement? That's amazing. Sobriety one day sober is like a hard thing to do. So to do it for 29 years is like so amazing. So that's really good. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Even if today was hard, wake up today to tomorrow's a new day. Look at what's happening in the moment, work on what you can right now. And don't forget to breathe. I say that some people say, like, "Oh, what do you mean don't forget to breathe? If I wasn't breathing, I wouldn't be here." So I want you to try to work on taking intentional breaths. And getting some oxygen flowing. I want you to start, like, working on moving your body. That's so helpful. All right, guys. So until next time, I'm going to talk to you guys later. I'm going to say bye to Instagram. Bye, Instagram. And then I'm going to say bye to you beautiful people. Bye, beautiful people.